I am Vlad in marketing. I'm Vlad in sales. I'm just Vlad and all my Vladness. And then and it's how most of us pretty much built, and especially, when you build something, at first you are the king of your little domain, but then you become your own bottleneck.
Yep.
Acknowledging the bottleneck and willing to start delegating was really uh did a number of my on my mindset.
Hello, and welcome to the Attorney Post, where we give you the inside scoop with top attorneys in their field. And now, here's our host, Justin West.
Hello, everybody. This is Justin West with the Attorney Post, where we discuss what's going on in various facets of the law with lawyers at the top of their game to help you navigate the various ins and outs of the various legal fields and jurisdictions out there. Because, as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Vlad Portnoy, who runs the eponymous law firm that bears his name. It's also New York Wills and Estates, and he's in the process of getting snowed in pretty heavily up there. So, Vlad, how are you doing this morning or afternoon?
Fantastic. It's a great opportunity to cancel all the personal meetings and stay at home.
Well,
Great.
I'm happy to get to spend the afternoon with you here. So we're going to dive into all things wills, estates, and trusts. Before we do that, as always, we're going to jump over and take a look at his site. The actual website, we'll have a link to it down below, as always, is NY, as in New York, willsandestates.com. I actually didn't check with you to make sure that was the best website, because I do know that you also work in New Jersey as well. But we'll give
Nope,
this
that's the
one.
same.
Okay. Any other links that are relevant, we'll have down in the field box for everyone else as well. So this here is New York Wills and Estates. Vlad is the founder and the managing attorney of the law offices of Vlad Portnoy PC, which is a New York City-based firm focused on wills, estates, trusts, elder law, and special needs planning. He advises business owners, high net worth families, and individuals on asset protection, success planning, Medicaid planning, and guardianships. He's a native Russian speaker, certified by the New York State court system as a court translator. He's also deeply involved in the legal community and frequently lectures and writes on estate and asset planning and protection. He's admitted to practice in New York, New Jersey, and the U.S. District Court for the District of New Jersey as well. So, having said all that, which was kind of a mouthful, but probably didn't even get to the very beginning of it, I'm sure I missed a few things. So, question number one for you, Vlad, is just this: what did I miss?
Well, I am an extraordinary human being, and this is the true color of my hair. Uh,
Beautiful.
yeah.
It's beautiful. This is the
I am
true color of my
also,
hair too.
yeah, I love your haircut. How did you get that going? I also very humble, clearly, and no, it's you gotta when you do what we do, you gotta have a sense of humor. So there's a lot of other activities like being member of the New York, New Jersey bars, both state bars and local chapters and local county bar associations, and all kinds of. I'm also an avid networker, so I love meeting new people, exchanging ideas, and paying it forward.
Awesome, awesome. So obviously, you're a lawyer, you work in wills, estates, etc. But if you and I were in an elevator, I had no clue who you were, and you could give me your 30-second or so elevator pitch to tell me who you specifically help, what services you provide, and why people work with you. What would that sound like?
So briefly, we help for to play for contingencies for someone either passing away or losing their mental capacity, like to something like Alzheimer's or dementia. So anyone who may go insane or die is our potential client, which is everyone.
That's close to 99% at least, right?
Yeah, well, unless you're that 1% of immortals that actually crack the meaning of life and have the elixir. But I'm also we do this in New York and New Jersey because that's where I'm licensed. I don't do it in other states, but in New York and New Jersey, it's quite fun. So, and back in the day when I first joined my first BNI chapter about 15 years ago, they had taglines. So my tagline was "Your legacy preserved," and it didn't resonate, because what we do is we preserve legacy. We want to make sure that no one's fighting over your casket. But my tagline after that became "I'm Vlad Portnoy and I'm saving your assets," and that resonates with a lot of people. There was also someone I heard at the time who was already in existence, who was an attorney. I'm not sure who it was, but I heard their tagline was, "If you're gonna die, I'm your guy," and that is fantastic. I wish I came up with it. I didn't. But the reality is that's my elevator speech. Anyone who may be losing control over their assets and they want to make sure that the loved ones get it, and not loved ones don't get it. That's what we do. We plan for contingencies, or we deal with whatever circumstances are when things already happened and nothing was planned.
And of course, not loved ones would include the state and
Well, weirdly enough, yeah, obviously you have creditors, you have the state, the federal, the IRS, Medicaid. These are, some of these are technically your creditors. They're not bad people. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. But just like tax planning that everybody heard about and everybody thinks it's for the rich, it's not. But like tax planning, if you don't plan for taxes, you're just going to pay more taxes. Same thing. If you don't plan for your health care, you'll just have Medicaid, take over and you'll lose a lot of stuff to Medicaid instead of planning of what they allow you legally to do and how to plan. So, but also what happens is people just hate their families sometimes, and that's just reality. They have, two kids and one they haven't talked to in about 20 years. Well, they want to make sure that that kid doesn't get anything because they get 50% by law if that person dies unmarried. For example, I'm just giving you general overview. They may also have loved ones who have special needs and they're in public assistance, and they should just not get money outright. There's a way to provide for them, so they have this money available, but they're not touching the actual cash and losing all of the money that the government provides to them freely. There's also possibility that you could have a loved one that is a loved one, but they may be substance abuser. So again, same situation. You don't want to give them the money just so they would get a lot of drugs and God forbid end up dead because they had that access to that much drugs. So again, you do proper planning. So there's a lot of loved ones, not loved ones, and in between. I can't tell you how many war stories I've had where people said, I'm like, hey, who are your next of kin? Who are your relatives? They're all bastards. I don't like them. Well, but who are they? I'm not telling you. And then they're dead. And we're like, all right, we have to find those people and tell them they're not getting anything. So that's a very interesting legal conundrum. And people go, why would you do that? You know they're cut off. But then you go, well, the court wants to complete jurisdiction, so we kind of have to do that. And sometimes we go at great length finding these people because we must, go reverse engineer several generations back to the old country somewhere, and it becomes like, why would you spend this much money on all kinds of things besides lawyers? And the truth is, you have to, in order to satisfy all the legal requirements. So, never a dull moment here.
Gotcha. So let me ask you a more general question. I know this is the boring question, but I'm sure you've answered it multiple times for other people. But I'm still curious, what got you into law in the first place? But also, how did you get from I want to be an attorney to I want to help people with wills and estates and whatnot? What was the trajectory that led you into doing what you're doing today?
I immigrated here when I was almost 16. And before that, I was in Russia. And being in Russia as a child, I was very idealistic, and I still remain very idealistic uh, about all the injustices that I can possibly help with. But there are some battles that I'm just not picking. There are some things that other people become, for example, they become lawyers, but they become a public defender or a prosecutor, depending on their belief, and they go and they fight. I don't do court. I don't enjoy court work. I've done plenty of court work, but I enjoy more transactional. So what I wanted to do is help people, and for that I wanted to be a lawyer. At 8 years old in Russia, that being a lawyer at the time in the 80s was not anything glamorous. You're just a dancing monkey. You're a pawn. You do what you're told. But so I needed to figure it out. When I came here, I started looking around and I realized, okay, this is where I can get that going. But my intent was to be a corporate attorney, which I got my wish for a few years. And then at some point in 2009, I switched to this area, which I've been doing since October of 2009. And I enjoy it a lot more, and I enjoy it immensely. And this is, what they say, a B2C, business to customer. We deal with real people every hour, every day. I meet with 8 to 10 people a day, and we try to help. We try to solve their issues, whatever they are, and it's quite entertaining
Gotcha.
and
So if somebody
rewarding.
wants to work with you, is that do they come in person? Is it done virtually? Does it matter? Do you work with people in New Jersey and New York? Do you work in any other states? What's the process of onboarding look like for someone that's, interested in working with you in your firm?
I can't work with people, and I can't even give legal advice. So I can't really meet officially with people in other states outside of the ones that where I'm licensed, because anything I can literally utter will be taken as legal advice, or maybe taken as legal advice. So I can only do that in New York and New Jersey. Technically speaking, I can do it throughout each state because it's a state law. What we do is under a state law of each state. Even though we do Medicaid planning and wills, there's there the laws are similar, but they vary vastly between New York and New Jersey. So, in general, there are things that we can do remotely completely. Like we can do probates remotely, we can do Medicaid planning remotely. But wills and trusts, we meet on Zoom usually, and we discuss everything that needs to be done. We circulate the drafts, and then we meet once at the actual office to sign. So if I'm working with someone, they still have to be in my wingspan. So in New Jersey, my office is in northern Jersey, and so a couple of neighboring counties. In New York City, where my office is, we're basically downstate New York, like Long Island and New York City. We don't go all the way to Buffalo unless it's something like, a probate that we can do remotely. But considering that probates can sometimes turn into a contest, we usually don't take those either. So usually it's all virtual until the very last moment when we meet and sign, and we're done.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I know a lot of people do online doc signing these days. Is that something that for some reason you guys can't do? Or I honestly just don't know. So this is me pondering if that's something you could be totally virtual, or is that like there's a law that says you literally have to have pen on the paper in New York or something like that?
There is a new law actually that you don't, but I am old school, so I do, considering that of all the atrocities that I've seen throughout my relatively short career, because there's people who've been doing it for 40, 50 years, and they have even more war stories. But considering the amount of fraud that goes on with documents and with banks and with real estate and with probates, I do prefer what's called a wet signature, which is pen
Yeah.
and paper. That's the one thing that I do insist on.
Well, and that's just human too. Like, it lets you meet the people and know that you're a real person and not just a bunch of digital pixels on a screen, right? I mean, in my line of work, I'm a digital pixel for almost everybody I work with. But I really do respect being able to sit down and have a drink with somebody and answer their questions in person and just be human. So I think that's awesome. Um,
Well,
so
I
let me
also
ask you.
like to
Okay,
showcase my shoes and ties.
well,
That in
obviously,
person, because you can't do it on Zoom. I can't just get up and show my shoes. But when they come in, they go, "Oh, those shoes are cool," and we have a whole conversation. It's gonna break in the eyes, but at the very end.
I got these amazing wingtips. You got to see them.
Yeah.
Uh, So let me ask you this. Now you've been practicing for a good long while, it sounds like. Since 2009 is when you started off on your own doing this. You were doing corporate law for a couple years before that. And that means you've got close to 20 years under your belt at least. And I'm sure in that time, I'm a firm believer that failure is sometimes the best teacher in life. I'm sure that you've had some great successes, but also some swing and a miss, some fouls way off to the right field or whatever. Can you tell my listeners, Vlad, about maybe one of your biggest failures in your process of learning law, whether it was in the corporate world or whether it was, starting your own company, and what you learned from that and how you carry that forward to make sure that you've learned from your mistake and you're not repeating it.
Yeah, well, there were a few about the same time when my firm had to either close down or grow. So for 12 years, I was what they call a true solo. I meet with people, I market to people, I talk to them on the phone, I draft, I meet with them to sign. And at some point, when you're starting out and you don't have any clients, my first year I made $7,000 a year. It was awesome. But And I've been doubling ever since, but then at some point it becomes taxing and you go, you're choking, you're working 80 hours weeks just to stay at the same place where you hit about 4 or 5 years ago. Because now the old clients are coming back, they have a little question that is not billable, and if it was billable, about 4.5 years ago, I hit the point where I didn't want to close, but I almost closed. And it was a close friend that said, "Hey, there's a way to deal with it, and there's a way to expand." And I go, "Well, no one can be Vlad better than Vlad. I am Vlad in marketing. I'm Vlad in sales. I'm just Vlad in all my Vladness." And then and it's how most of us pretty much built, and especially, when you build something, at first you are the king of your little domain, but then you become your own bottleneck.
Yep.
Acknowledging the bottleneck and willing to start delegating was really uh, did a number of my on my mindset. It didn't come easy. My subconscious was fighting back tooth and nail. But the moment I let it happen, I couldn't stop. It was very addictive. So now we have a firm I started with one person who was virtual. Now we have 14 people in the firm. So it's, 4 years later, it's a lot. And now I can't wait to delegate more. It comes with, obviously, with other challenges like managing and making sure that no one's like asleep at the coffee break. But generally, it's very rewarding, and that was something, I don't know if it's a failure or not, but it's basically what every one of us faces at some point. Can you delegate? Who can you trust? Because I'm like, I can't trust anyone. These people are out to get me, everybody. And then they weren't. It was very interesting. It was very eye-opening.
Well, if they're asleep at the coffee break, you might need better coffee. Uh, no, that's awesome. You're preaching to the choir on this one. I suck at delegating. Like I'm a realist, and I know that I'm the best person at everything I do in my business, and so why would I ever want anyone else to ever do it? And then you just run out of time and space and mental energy and bandwidth, and eventually you're like, okay, I gotta ease up off the reins a little bit and trust other people. And I've had some wonderful people come in and help me. I think you met one of my sales guys, Brent. He's phenomenal. I've loved Brent for years now. He came in about 4 years ago, and it's been a wonderful asset for me. So like I totally get that. Like I really do. And again, you're preaching to the choir. I suck at delegating. I still suck at delegating, but I know I have to do it. So I'm glad to know other people struggle with the same things that I'm struggling with. So the
The
flip side of that coin. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, no, I'm saying the help is out there. It
Yeah,
is it is definitely out there. Just you have to basically be willing to seek it and be willing to accept it. That's very,
absolutely.
very tough.
Absolutely. So the flip side of that coin, though, is success. I am sure you wouldn't still be in business. You wouldn't have grown the way you've grown, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, if you weren't doing something right. So the flip side of that coin is what's one or two of the things in your practice, Vlad, that you're most proud of? The feathers in your proverbial cap when you're falling asleep at night and you're trying to fall asleep and you think back and you're like, oh, I can't believe that worked out so well or whatever. What are the things that you're most proud of?
Well, success is a relative term, so I'm not sure if I'm at that level yet, or if I am defining success the same way that someone else would define success. But I am still there. I'm still around. So that's kind of cool. And we've been growing exponentially. And in the last 4 years, I've kind of quadrupled the revenue of the firm. So the firm is doing pretty well, very healthy. I have, which again was unfathomable. Like in my best dream, when people ask me, where you want to be, I'm like, I want to be at this number.
Yeah.
And then they're like, and I would have been at that number working by myself 80-hour weeks, but now I am way, way, way past that number. And looking back, it's like that's just silly. But do I want to double or quadruple it again? I don't know yet. It's very scary, but I'm willing to try, which is a very, very hard thing to make yourself do. This is now, first you delegate, and that's a big thing, but then you base on it and go, okay, well, delegation was scary, and I did that. So now what I have to do is to have faith in the process and get myself outside of my own box where I box myself in. Think outside the box that I am comfortable in. when they say to other people, think outside the box. Well, now you have to acknowledge, okay, there's a box. I built it. I sit in it. I'm the only one who can just open the box and get out. Am I willing to take that chance? And because the chance always comes with a utter and complete failure. Um, so that's the scary part. We're not really afraid of success because, okay, I want an X amount of dollars by the end of the year. Fine. If I make a half of it, I'm still making money. I'm still surviving. But the flip side is I could be in a negative twice that and with all kinds of creditors breathing down my neck. That's the scary part, and people are not even scared of failing in their business as much as what would their friends and family think of them, what would people say about them. And part of the growing up is also acknowledging that who cares, but again, that's a scary one. So every time you go, you get a little more comfortable and you go, okay, the next step will be bigger. So the gains are bigger, but the failure will be bigger. So where am I going with this? So I think that in my proverbial cap, I am slowly losing fear of all of those things. They just become irrelevant. It's like it's like Neo when he sees the Matrix for the first time. Just start seeing the code. That did not come to me at all for the first like couple of years of growing. So as of 2 years ago, I was growing and I was still kind of living in the matrix. When I saw the code, I'm like, okay, this code can now be perfected and turned it from beta to 2.0, but you gotta keep going, and that's where we are. So it's personal growth and it is very closely tied to a firm growth.
Gotcha.
Um,
Related question. Do you know Kung Fu?
I actually, you know what? I resonate with that because, and by the way, that was a really good impression. Uh, I studied Kung Fu back in Russia, so for 2 years. So I still have the old instincts, and I still kind of, listen, I'm not. That was 2 years when I was a teenager, but I still love it. I watched all the Jackie Chan movies there were at the time, and I wish that I could do more Kung Fu, and I should know because martial arts is king. It's awesome. I love it.
No, it is awesome and trains the whole body, trains the mind. And it's a life skill. I mean, you can bench press all you can bench press, but if you can't turn that into useful, it's not going to help you that much. But if you know how to duck and weave and bob and throw a punch and grapple and whatnot, like that's a very different set of skills. It's something I want to get back into as well. So I agree with that 100%. One more random question. You seem like a very well we'll say well cultured individual. You've got the Matrix references and everything else. Who's your favorite attorney in pop culture or movies or TV, if you have one?
Oh, I am sure I have one. The problem is that I have not watched TV in over 15 years, probably over
And that,
16 years.
to be fair, neither have I.
Nothing. I mean, there's nothing. So, and again, well, I'll tell you this. I had a duo back before when I had a job and I wasn't doing what I'm doing. I absolutely loved all David E. Kelly shows. Everything was the word Boston in it. Boston Legal, Boston Public. It all, if you know who it is, it all started from Ally McBeal, and then that's the guy who created Ally McBeal, and then he was from Boston, so everything takes place in Boston. It's all Boston. But uh, in Boston Legal, William Shatner and James Spader were just two complete like insanity. Like these guys were insane. They're basically two senior partners at a very shishy law firm, and it's obviously as David E. Kelly goes, as his show goes, there's a lot of shenanigans goes on. The writing is very tight, but they are and William Shatner's character, if you've never seen it, it's just this guy's just got it so right. William Shatner's character is like a senior partner who has founding partner of the firm, and his name is Danny Crane, and he always does something completely asinine, and he says Danny Crane. And I always was at some point when I later started going with my wife, she said, you should say Vlad Portnoy, and I'm like, I don't have the that character has such cojones. Like he would just it you just have to see it to understand because it's not like a regular procedural like a Law and Order. It's very entertaining, and I guess those two guys, and they both were kind of similar but different.
I'll
So
put I'm gonna put that on my watch queue. I don't watch a lot of TV either, but I'll put on the one to make sure it has Shatner in it because I mean you can never have enough Shatner in your life,
you
right?
can never have, but but it's like it's so much more than that. There's a lot. You will see a lot of actors that's after that went into movies. Like David
Yeah.
E. Kelly is a star maker.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of cameos that you'll be like, oh my God, they got this guy on the show or something like that. And and if you go even back, I mean, I think I'm a little older than you. If you go even back to Murphy Brown, so
I remember
Candice
Murphy Brown.
Bergen, so right, so the firm there is Crane, Pool and Schmidt. There's three partners. Crane is Denny Crane, and there's another part, and then there's other two, and Candice Bergen is the other partner. And her tagline is always, "The name on the door is Crane, Pull, and Schmidt. I am Schmidt." And she delivers it so firmly every time. It just like the whole thing is just insanity. It's great. And the late Rene Auberjonois is in there. If you're a Star Trek fan, he was, I think, in Deep Space Nine. He plays a partner there. So there's a lot of really cool things going on. I think this took a lot longer than expected, but I can talk about that show forever.
The point of my podcast is not to just teach people law or anything like that. The point of the podcast is to humanize the attorney, let people know you're a real person. I enjoyed these conversations. These are my favorite conversations to have. We can dive into the nitty gritty stuff here in a minute. We'll be law nerds here for a few minutes, but I love these questions. I love your answers. So this is seriously, I just phenomenal. Yeah,
Thank you.
I grew up, and I am maybe a little younger than you, but not that much younger. I remember Murphy Brown. I think, too young to watch it and enjoy it. I was in the '80s. I would have been hitting 10 years old by the end of the '80s. So, I was a little too young to actually appreciate Murphy Brown, but I do remember very, very distinctly. I have my formative memories were around the '80s, and I think I can still hear the theme song to it. I don't remember exactly how it went, but like my mom would watch it in the evening. So I'm there, and I do love me some
I
Shatner. So.
Yeah, I watched a lot of reruns on that also. So, I came in and it was only outs, but I caught like the tail end of it
That
as well as Married with Children. So that was a classic.
No.
We're not gonna go there. This is a
Well, yeah, there's not a lot of legal stuff going on with Al Bundy. We'll let that one slide, but I'm also a fan of Al Bundy. So, all right, so let's talk law for a little bit. People come into your office and they've got a problem, and people probably come to you with problems they think you can solve, and ideally you can solve most of them. But I'm sure some people come in with misconceptions about what you can and can't do. So, can you let me know, and more importantly, my listeners know, Vlad, what's a big misconception people bring into your office about what you can do for them or what they need to have done or not done or whatnot? What are the misconceptions you like to disabuse people of?
well, actually, it's funny because it ties into exactly into the
This episode of Murphy Brown. Oh, sorry.
no, you know what? Yes, no, but it ties more into like 80s and 90s, like the all the shows where basically we were a lot of people were watching the shows where as long as you are energetic and creative, you can get out of everything and you can and the biggest misconception is that for the right price, the lawyer will figure anything out and make everything that's technically legal legal. And that's what makes a good lawyer, that they'll just figure out how to legalize it. And the only way that tangentially works is if a criminal defense lawyer gets you off for a crime on a technicality or a smaller thing, where every like I'm not saying guilty or innocent. I'm saying, let's say everybody in the room knows you did it. You know you did it, and somehow you get less or you get off. Maybe it's not how it's done in what I do. So people come in and say, "We need a trust." Okay, but we need the trust to say this. Well, it's a legal nullity. You can't do that. Well, are you a lawyer or what? Figure it out. No, you can't do that. You just can't do. It's just you can't do that. That's all there is. You can't do that. And And most of the time, I am able to get through and explain, because what they're trying to do is they know what needs to be done. They just don't want to accept it, and they're trying to test you, and as an attorney, to see if you will blink and you will say, okay, if you pay me more, I will see what I can do, or we can do this, but don't tell anyone. I don't do any of that. There are people who do. They usually lose their licenses, or there are people who do it unwittingly, and then they have to basically get a big brother, kind of a more seasoned lawyer, and to have him, hand over all the money they made just to get out of this mess, which has happened. People have come to me and say, I did this little boo-boo, and now the client is calling me and I'm not picking up the phones. What can I do? And, you try to help them out and say, no, legally, this is where you went wrong. So lawyers make those mistakes too. There is a lot of it. Also depends. Younger, greener lawyers who are just doing things without, because they don't know better, and then they just step into something. I personally have come very close, but I've always worked with more seasoned attorneys to avoid this, because that was one thing that I was deathly scared of. And that's how you learn also with client management, when the clients come in and say, and then they try to guilt you. They know they're wrong, but they want to just guilt you to feel bad about yourself. They're really pressing on your ego, and they're expecting you to, because your ego is hurting and you don't want to be seen as an attorney who doesn't know their stuff, even though you actually know, and you're saying that this cannot be done, and then but you might lose a client who's willing to pay, so there's a lot of that stuff going around, and you need to be able to. I've never had a problem of saying, I this is above my pay grade. Let me get help. Let me send you to someone else. Let me get a co-counsel, whatever it is, to actually cover myself and make sure the client is actually getting what they want and what they need, and not necessarily where they're lost. There's something's lost in translation, and they're expected to do miracles for no reason whatsoever.
Gotcha. No, I mean, that makes sense. I get it.
It happens.
Yeah, it does happen. So here's something that most people never think about. I actually never thought about it until I asked you, what are we going to talk about? It's on my form and we were filling out and getting ready for this. And one of the things that you put in there was, and I just never really considered this, was public benefit preservation. If people are receiving certain kinds of benefits, if the family has a very well-intentioned inheritance that they want to give somebody, it can completely unravel their Medicaid, their SSI eligibility, and things like that. Can you explain that to the average listener? Because I this is a new concept to me, and it's not something I've ever really considered before. But it sounds like this is a bigger issue than I ever thought it would be.
Yeah, the issue is absolutely huge, and it's so big and scary that a lot of people try to resort to do-it-yourself tactics and make it even worse. So the idea is, if someone's already on, for example, Medicaid, and then they have some inheritance, or they win a personal injury lawsuit, they get hit by a car, they get a ton of money, more money than they ever had in their life. And they can't really keep it and keep the benefits, but they can't really reject it, nor do they want to reject it in order to keep the benefits. So it becomes, chicken or the egg. But this is where you need to speak with a knowledgeable elder law attorney, because if you try to do it yourself, it's just going to blow up. I had a case many years ago where this really nice grandma, I mean, nice Russian grandma, she was 84 at the time. She was in a wheelchair. She was on every public assistance possible, because when she immigrated, she never worked, so she didn't have any work credits. She was very lovely. She won a lawsuit, got hit by a car. Regular insurance policy is $100,000. The lawyer takes a third, other fees, 60,000 on hand to grandma. Grandma says, well, I don't want to lose the money, but 60,000 is nothing compared to what Medicaid's paying me. So, and I also happen to have two kids, and they each have three kids. So I have six grandchildren that I absolutely love. And I have $60,000. She gives all of these kids $10,000 as a gift from grandma, and here you go, kids. Grandma loves you. Doesn't keep a penny to herself. And then 2 months later, she gets a letter from SSI and Medicaid saying, "Thank you very much. We're not going to pay for you anymore." And Medicaid pays like half of that a month for a lot of people. That's like just 2 months of Medicaid. So she said, what's the big deal? I don't have the money anymore. But the problem was she had the money and she gave it away, and Medicaid and SSI look at it as, well, if you have all that money and we're paying you a lot less money, but consistently, why are we paying you? Why are you giving lavish gifts, $10,000 to per kid to 6 kids? So it all blew up. They could have done it, again, if they were seeking us without assuming that they just know better. It would have been, it would not be cheap or expensive. It would be just a solid work that would preserve most of the money and all of her benefits. Instead, she ended up paying exactly twice as much to do that and then undo the damage. She had to take all the money back from the kids, which now makes her look even worse. Her kids understood, but her grandkids, like, I bought, and they already spent it. The parents already bought a bike and a Nintendo and whatever. So now the parents are now, taking the money out of pocket to just have that same amount to give back to grandma. And no one was happy.
Yeah.
And in a nutshell, you don't want to end up in those circumstances. And it took a lot of advocacy, like a long time, to calm down SSI and Medicaid, assure them that there's no shenanigans, that it was just, her own lack of knowledge, and please forgive. But it took a while, and that's why it was a lot more expensive. That it doesn't have to be. So that's public benefit preservation. We need to preserve the benefits and potentially as much money as we can.
That makes sense. Is there a point where it's too soon, and is there a point where it's too late for planning for something like this?
There's never too soon. I mean, as long as you kind of keep tabs on, okay, something's going down the pike, and Edna in California is about to, at some point, she has dementia and she's of age. And at some point, she's rich and she did not do a will. We all know that the client's about to get some portion of that estate. Well, you kind of have to start planning for that. And whoever is next to her in California and whoever, the beneficiaries, the expected beneficiaries would be. So it's never too early. We have a lot of people that do inquire, and I go, okay, this we can do now, and this you have to wait until we get whatever information, and then, so we work with whoever it is. But is there a way for too late? Yes, exactly like I just said about the grandma. It was too late to plan. It was too late to do anything. It was basically massive defensive work, and that's why it was done, but it was a lot more expensive. The family lost a lot more money that they didn't have to lose. And, in my previous life, before I started doing this, I was in corporate law, and I learned one thing and I was in-house. I was working for a company, and I learned one thing a very hard lesson that people don't understand, that risk management is always better than damage control. That is what we are. Risk management is any time up until it's too late, because when it's too late, it's damage control. That's what everybody has to remember.
I think a lot of people feel that the common maxim, it's better ask for forgiveness than permission, but it sounds like not
It's
in
the
this
opposite.
case.
It's the
Yeah, it's the
opposite with what we do. It's complete. I've personally never, ever, even as a child, done that. Even like I didn't know the actual proverb, but I always thought that there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
So maybe I've asked too many permissions in my life, and maybe that's why I do what I do. But definitely not in this area.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So I'm just looking at the clock. I realize we're actually already at the bottom of the hour here. I don't want to take up more of your time. I know you've got a hard stop, not too distant future. So what I'm going to do here in a minute, Vlad, is I'm going to ask you my closing questions. I'll give those to you right now so you can percolate on them, and then we'll come back here in a minute and I'll let you answer them. Question number one, I give you a magic wand, and you can change one thing about your practice. What would you change? Number two, if you can go back in time, meet young Vlad, give him some advice other than the obvious, which of course is buy a lot of Bitcoin and hold it till 100K. What advice would you give yourself and why? And number three is if I gave you my magical, in this case, Bic number two 7 millimeter pencil. And with this pencil, you could strike a law from the books, add a new law, or edit a law. What law would you strike, edit, or change? While you're percolating on that, we're going to jump over really quickly. I'm talking with Vlad Portnoy. He is the eponymous law firm. You can see his smiling visage right there on nywillsandestates.com. That's nywillsandestates.com. You can schedule consultation at 516-518-8586. That's 516-518-8586. He's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, TikTok, etc. So you can follow him on all of the different platforms out there. I'm realizing I never read from our sponsors at the top of the hour. I'm going to read from just one of them right now because I want to be as respectful of your time as possible. And we have a new sponsor today, which is Search Sift. Which is a really neat company. Search Sift helps high cost per click businesses win before the PPC auction ever starts by influencing what people see in Google's predictive suggestions while they're still forming the search. Instead of paying $100, $200, even $600 to $1,000 per click in brutal bidding wars like Google AdWords, Search Sift puts your brand in front of the searchers earlier so that they click when it's cheaper. They come to you more warm and more likely to convert. It doesn't replace necessarily SEO or running ads, but it changes the playing field completely by simply moving where you're competing upstream, where intent is being shaped. If you're a personal injury attorney, if you're in rehab, med spa, dental implants, or financial planning, for anybody it happens to be, any market where clicks are painfully expensive, this is actually an unfair advantage. It's the unfair advantage you've been looking for. If you want to lock in your metro before a competitor does, book a quick demo at SearchSift. That's SearchSyft, searchsift.com, and see how before the click actually works. All right, I lost my mouse here. We'll come back over here. All right, so Vlad, question number one. Is it not stopping the share? There we go. I hit the wrong button. Question number one. I give you my magical wand, and with this wand, you can change one thing about your practice. Now, it sounds like your practice has already changed a lot, particularly this would have been a more handy wand to have about 4 or 5 years ago. But if you could change one thing right now about how things are operating, what would you change?
I'm not sure there's anything in particular would be, but I would like to have clarity. As a growing business, even learning that law firm is just another business was kind of hurting my ego, as it does for a lot of solos who suddenly realize just a business. It's
Yeah,
no different than from a candy shop. So I
very
would like
expensive candy.
a very expensive candy. It's yeah. And I would just want a little more clarity about, in general, like that a lot of things as anything growing, you kind of go, well, I'm not sure, but I'm just gonna, it's 50-50. I'm gonna go here. Would be awesome to have a little bit more clarity, a little like a cheat sheet on which way to go. What would be the 51% controlling package in that decision? That would be awesome.
That makes sense. Question number two. We travel back in time without breaking the space-time continuum, which is probably something we could talk for a long time about because you seem like a nerdy guy who loves the stuff that I love. You like
Butterfly
Star
effect,
Trek,
yes, Isaac
Star,
Asimov.
Star Trek, Isaac Asimov, Bill Shatner. You love all the things, right? So we go back in time. We don't break the space-time continuum, and you can talk to young Vlad, maybe fresh out of law school, maybe a little earlier than that. But what advice would you give yourself?
Um, Trust your gut. I've, as I said, interestingly enough, everything ties in. As I just said, I've asked for too many permissions because I didn't want to offend. I didn't, and I still don't want to offend, but some things they just wouldn't be offensive. It just is. Just go, do it. Don't ask, don't wait. Just go and take, the world is your oyster. So I would absolutely advise myself to just be more confident about making the right steps. That instead, it took me decades to build that confidence with proven record, as opposed to some people just have that confidence, and I should have been that person more.
That's fair. I think that's something we all kind of struggle with too. So, of course, the thing that gives you the confidence is the success that you learn over time and working through your failures. So I guess it's one of those hard things. Even if you told your younger self, you'd be like, I don't know what that means. It would probably sound like foreign advice, but you never know. Okay, question number 3. Magical pencil time. This is my trusty Bic 0.7 millimeter, not 7 millimeter. That's just ridiculously large, 7 millimeter, but 0.7 millimeter number 2 pencil. Works great for filling out public forms and everything else. But I actually found out that the graphite that's in here can strike laws from the books, it can edit laws, and it can adjust them. But it's at the very, very tip. It's the end of the graphite, so I'm almost out of it. So if I gave you this pencil and you could make one change with the remaining graphite in this pencil, what change would you make and why? And it can be big, can be little, can have sweeping national ramifications. You can get rid of parking tickets. What would you get rid of? What would you change and why?
Honestly, I am a worker bee. I am a follower of the rules. I've never considered that, and maybe there are a lot of rules out there that don't make sense to me, but I'm sure if they exist, they made sense to a lot of people who passed them. I think I would keep the laws on the books the way they are. I would change some proverbial laws of nature and laws of whatever, and that we just no one voted on, that we just would accept because that's just life. I would change a couple of those, but I'm not going to be able to tell you which ones they are because I don't want to get canceled. Uh, if is that still such a thing? But anyway, yeah. So
Only if you let them.
there there's been yeah there's
Don't ask permission or don't.
don't ask permission, just cancel. Okay. And as of tomorrow, everybody's wearing a skirt. I don't know. No, it's a or pants.
It's called a kilt. It's called a utility kilt, right?
I have worn a kilt, by the way. When I first got here, I was in a Broadway play that took place in Scotland. In high school, it was a high school play. I had my accent was so heavy that they asked me not to sing. There were 50 people that were singing, except for me, but I wore a kilt. So not the first rodeo. This is back in the 93. So yeah, one for the books.
That's awesome. I think the thumbnail for this video is I'm going to have my assistant superimpose you in a skirt, so we'll make sure that happens.
I'll find that kilt video. You'll see, it's amazing. It's
That's awesome. Show off those gams.
Yeah, oh my God, yes, yes. I was working out. I was buff. I had those socks, the long socks with the calves. It was great. Of course, I don't think it can be published because I don't think I was 18 yet. So,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
Don't want to get hit with those sorts of
No,
those
no, we
sorts of
don't want
issues.
to be in any files.
Well, Vlad, I've actually really enjoyed the conversation. It's been a good time talking with you, and I do always like to let my guests have the final word. Are there any last words of wisdom or parting thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Yes, thank you, Justin. So also great being here. Thank you for having me. It's a really amazing conversation. You're a great conversationalist, amazing host.
Oh, stop.
Um, so there was another proverb I've learned along the way, and that is that success is never final and failure is never fatal. And that is what from my philosophy major in college. I have a lot more. There was one that I never understood, but kind of did, and it was from Milton Friedman, the great economist of the middle of last century, who said, "Everyone for themselves and God for us all," said the elephant, and he danced among the chiclets. Ponder that.
I don't know what to make of that, but I'm still stuck on failure is never fatal. I'm like, if you're in bomb disposal or you're jumping out of an airplane, you might not take those words to heart. But in general, I
Pretty
understand the
much.
concept.
Well, yeah. Yes,
Usually it's not fatal. And I think
yeah.
that's a good way to look at it. So, well, Vlad, I really appreciate you joining me today. This has been, as always, the Attorney Post, and I am your host, Justin West. I've been talking with Vlad Portnoy, who runs the eponymous law firm that bears his name. It's also over at New York. That's nywillsandestates.com. We'll have a link to his information, everything down below in the box below. As always, though we do talk about lots of legal issues on this podcast does not constitute legal advice. And if you have a legal issue, you should always seek the advice of a competent attorney in your area who focuses on the matter that you need help with. Now, obviously, if you live in New York or New Jersey, particularly around where Vlad is, it sounds like he's got a great head on his shoulders and a great sense of humor and would probably be a wonderful asset. So I'd really encourage you to seek him out. And again, we'll have all of his information down below. Otherwise, if you're watching this podcast on any of the major podcast repositories. Please feel free to rate us. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, share, all of those things. But the most important thing you can do is, if you know someone who would benefit from the information in this podcast, please share it with them. Because at the end of the day, that helps us grow the podcast, which is important, but it also helps them arm themselves with information. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. So step number one is get informed. Until next time, this is Justin West with the Attorney Post. Thank you guys very much for watching, and take care.